So, today
Yeah, what are we going to talk about?
we wanted to talk about, well, I'm bringing this topic today, and it's because of a story that I kind of wanted to share. That I'm kind of entitling this like "Don't say the B word," which obviously us doing this podcast or YouTube is Bitcoin. So I just really wanted to talk about the kind of the difficulties that we have now in using the term Bitcoin and what that conjures up in the kind of general mindset, and how we're going to get over this hurdle of
Mm.
um, the kind of the taintedness of what the mainstream thinks Bitcoin is. So I kind of wanted to go there today.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
in.
Alrighty. Well, I guess I'll start with the story. So I've been invited to speak at a conference, and I said, okay, great. I would like to talk about the future of money. I'd like to talk about Bitcoin. I'd like to talk about self-sovereignty. I'd like to talk about, money, value, what that means.
What kind of conference?
It's
Like,
a kind of female orientated conference about rising into empowerment and possibility. And having that conversation, I was sort of advised to not use the word Bitcoin. So it's like, wonderful, come share about the future of money, technology, possibility, um, sovereignty. But just if we cannot use the word Bitcoin, that would be good. And I was like, oh, okay, why is that? I was told that it's because the word Bitcoin conjures up all of these, negative feelings. And this one was saying, um, but what's happened with FTX and that whole collapse, and I think people are really worried, and obviously it's very dodgy, and people are really manipulating the system, and you have all of these Ponzi schemes with crypto. And I immediately said, yes, but that's not Bitcoin. And she went, I'm going to stop you there. No one's going to give you the time to explain why Bitcoin is not the same as other cryptocurrencies, and they're not going to give you the time for you to explain FTX and the problems of centralization. And I was
mm,
like, wow. So it was such an interesting moment to think, how are we going to talk about Bitcoin when we can't use the word Bitcoin anymore? Um, because it's like become so tarnished. And so I kind of wanted us to talk about this and just, you know, kind of pull this apart a little bit, which is why I wanted to bring it, really. But have you found, like, what are your thoughts when you have heard about what people think about Bitcoin, or when you have tried to talk about it?
well, I mean, at work, I don't mention it, and I mean, we're an environmental organization, and sort of the standard outlook from the environmental folks is crypto is, well, Bitcoin, it's environmentally toxic because of, various perceptions of it on how it's mined,
Mm.
and that it's dodgy because, this is what we've heard from mainstream media, that this is where the, creepy people hang out and do sneaky things. And so I'm not sure how folks at work would take it, but I don't bring it up, so I'm having this, like this self filter with crypto. And it's a shame because I'm so passionate about it. And, the other things that folks are passionate about at work, like some are artists, some love going for long hikes. And so they share this kind of through work, via work, because it's sort of an environmentally, these activities are sort of environmentally sound. And I can't share my passion for Bitcoin there. I just can sense that there's some blockage there. I did the other day feel like, you know what? I really need to read the Bitcoin standard so I can explain maybe better to folks in maybe that 30-second elevator speech to get them over some hurdle. So I actually went into a bookstore, this little bookstore that, kind of has sort of more leftish or more radical kind of books. And I went in there, I'm like, "Oh, do you have the Bitcoin Standard?" And this guy like looked at me and he's like, "Well, let me check." He gave me this. I could feel it right away. There was this wall he put up, and he checked his computer and he's like, "Nope." And he could have then looked, well, we might have other things on crypto.
Mm.
No, nothing. And then I thought, well, maybe he's just kind of a shy, abrupt person. Made excuses for him. But then I saw him, other people asking, and he was so vivacious and offering all his help on the laptop and looking for, are the books here? What else can they use? And again, it made me kind of sad. I couldn't be in this place to share my passion about Bitcoin or to learn about Bitcoin and I have been there many times and bought lots of books there. And I feel like I don't want to go back because they've put up this wall instead of being supportive or curious. But I did have like rattling off my Bitcoin experiences, but I did go to a family event or a gathering this weekend at this big luncheon. And a young guy was sitting next to me, and I was asking what he did, and he was very much into technology. And I kind of like thought, okay, he's young, he's into technology. I'm like, I love Bitcoin. Are you into crypto? And he's like, oh no, it's really interesting, but I just haven't gone there yet. So there was a fear, but it was a fear that because of the unknown, but he didn't push me away. He asked me about it, so there was a different kind of reaction to the unknowing of crypto and Bitcoin. Yeah, those have been like all recent events. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. It's so interesting to hear your stories because it's, one is a key, yeah, the environmental piece. And it doesn't matter really like how many times, we're talking about like being Bitcoiners and saying the value in it, like the importance of it, that actually to the environmental agenda, it is just a negative thing. It's something that is bad. And it's so interesting how nowadays, and it's probably always been like that, but it's just really apparent is just how blocked we are about speaking about things that are against the narrative of what is accepted. And it's like, where is the possibility to have conversation, and how do you end up changing minds? How do you end up having a radical conversation about the dreams and hopes and collaborations for the future if we can't even talk about the options? You know what I mean? It's like, even in that environmental narrative, it's not like, okay, just really inform me, give it, really explain why. It's like, no, I don't want to hear it. It's bad for the environment. Done. And there's no ability to come back with like, but what about gold? What about, I don't know, tumble drop?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like you can't do that. It doesn't matter because it's actually not inherently the energy. It's like it's this sort of distorted idea about what the technology is kind of being used for, and they just haven't accepted its use and value. And not to be able to talk about that at work and not to feel accepted, it can feel really difficult. And then yeah, like not being that whole piece about you going into the bookshop, I've had that too, like not in a bookshop, but in terms of just speaking to others about it. You just have this sense of like, oh, either poor you, or you're deluded, or you trying to rip so and so off by like talking about Bitcoin. And actually I was talking to somebody about Bitcoin recently, and after I left, I overheard them say, well, you don't know what her agenda is. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This idea that I'm trying to manipulate someone to get into Bitcoin because I want them to lose money. And I want them to invest in a Ponzi scheme. It's, it's so difficult. I don't really know what to do to support the narrative of promoting Bitcoin and actually the power of it. Um, because we've got to this place where I think FTX was really so damaging. So, I mean, all of the things that have happened this year, but having such a big institutional, like an organization that was invested heavily by institutional investors, it really hit a lot of normal folk, like a lot of normal people. Like, so you have institutional investors, but they were like investors for, institutions or, normal people. And so a lot of people were impacted by FTX collapse and heard about it. And now there are loads of crypto scams, or always have been, but there's a big one that's happening in the UK at the moment. And nobody can separate this idea of like crypto Bitcoin about Bitcoin FTX. It's just like we are kind of in this, yeah, it's a really difficult situation. I don't really know what to do about that.
Well, I think what you should do. Well, I mean, this is sort of standard operation of humans when something new comes along. This is the same exact thing that happened with the internet. The same exact thing that happens when you have new religions coming, the same, or new, these revolutions. Well, no, let me diss that, but let's just focus on the internet. I mean, that's the same exact thing that happened with internet. I mean, it's funny on Twitter, one of my new favorite places, because you can easily hop into the Bitcoin community and have chats and hear what people are saying. So it's sort of safe in that way. But, a lot of folks are sending out, pictures of old newspapers from the 90s here in the US. And all this talk about the internet is so dangerous. It's just for, dodgy people doing shady things. And this went on for years. And then there was all this talk about regulation. How do we regulate it? And it's the exact same thing. If you just like took Bitcoin and inserted it into where the internet was in these articles, it's the same thing. So I feel like it's just a matter of time. I think like what the crypto community needs to do is just keep like talking about it on YouTube, on Twitter, supporting each other, just building a strong crypto foundation in the existing community so that because it will happen, the general media and the government will say it's okay. There's just no way they're not. There's so many, JP Morgan, or is it JP Morgan? I don't know. All these large institutions, you hear every day more and more of these organizations, these institutions are accepting Bitcoin and crypto and, offering it to their customers. I mean, that's a huge push. So I think, I don't know when it will happen, in a year, in 5 years, but it's going to become the standard. And then people will be like, oh, Bitcoin, I have heard of that. And then they can get into it. And then we can open our arms, and really welcome people. But I think like you can't as an individual go around and change all these. I guess you could. It depends on who you are, and what kind of energy level you have. But I think the best things we can do is just keep supporting each other and keep putting information out there. And then when people are ready, they'll come and we can open, we can welcome them. That's my take on it. And not take so much burden on us, like, oh, we have to make this change. It will happen for sure.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And you're like the little positive bubble
That's my
here.
soapbox.
um yeah, I mean, I think it was so interesting because I think because of Twitter, you kind of you're in that echo chamber of people that agree, and really
Yeah.
understand why it's important. And when you're teaching about it, everyone's feeling inspired, everyone's there because they want to learn. And so I think, and even with FTX, it's like, well, there's no problem here in terms of Bitcoin. Like they didn't have any Bitcoin, they'd sold all their Bitcoin. And it really is, it's really nothing to do with Bitcoin, other than Bitcoin was like the first starter. And then you have these cryptocurrencies, and then you have these organizations that sort of are these platforms which hold them and trade with them, but it's nothing to do with Bitcoin. Yet I hadn't really recognized the kind of level of vitriol in the
Mm.
community to it, in a level where if you were talking about the future of money, you couldn't use the word Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, this is so interesting. Like, that is huge. Like, that is a big thing to not be able, like, imagine back in the day, like, not being able to say the word internet, because the word itself has such, like, intrinsic, in a way, connotations. It's like, it's not just Bitcoin that we can kind of talk about and it's just a word. It's actually, it conjures up immediate feelings of like corruption, um, you know, people doing bad things, stealing money. It's just like Bitcoin this, it's like subliminal messaging of just, if you hear it, bad. And I definitely see, yes, in the future, I think that you're right. I think it will become a lot more accepted, but at, I also wondered, like, at what cost? So you're talking about these big banks saying, we're going to offer it, PayPal, we offer it, um, Amazon, it's like, oh, good, let's find another middleman to take away your sovereignty in another way, and it's just, then it just becomes an investment asset for people rather than the recognition of what it is, which is like your money, money in your pocket, like that ability to kind of move away from third parties. So it's like, it's almost like until the mainstream know how to get their hands around it, that they'll continue to like manipulate the narrative until they're like, oh well, now you can buy Bitcoin, now it's good because we can offer it to you, because now you have to use us to buy it and access
True.
it. And it's the suspicious piece about Sam Bankman-Fried, who was the founder of FTX and who was really the lead corrupter in its downfall. And you think he came from this background of, his parents were both, is it Harvard professors? They,
Yeah.
Stanford, might have been Harvard, but very kind of institutional, like very, connected to the Democrats. Like, so you sort of think, was there the fact that he brought it down and he has created this additional kind of narrative about Bitcoin, just there's that extra level of suspicion, because it's like an infiltration from the the mainstream into this space. So
That's true. I mean, as it becomes more popular, in the media, it will be then, a focus on this is the institution where you can access Bitcoin, but it won't be yours. It's not like you have it on your hard wallets and it's in your hands. Yeah, I mean, I don't think some people just don't want to, they want to give their power away,
yeah.
because they have other things they find more interesting, intriguing, or important in their life. So they're just going to give their power away. And I think that's okay. I think that some people want more power, some people want less power of their own autonomy and their own individuality, and some people don't. So don't worry about those people. But, I was thinking about going to this conference. I mean, you can just paint the picture of what Bitcoin offers without saying Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then somebody in that crowd is going to put two and two together, and it's going to be that somebody who already has Bitcoin in the corner of their brain, and they'll make that connection. So it's, let them make the connection. But if you paint that picture of what the possibilities without using the word crypto or Bitcoin,
Mm.
Somebody will figure it out.
Mm.
And I think it'll be a good thing.
Yeah, and that makes me think, because I that's exactly what I'm thinking about doing, is just saying, imagine having a, global digital currency that can cross borders, across the world. There's no like border boundary, peer to peer. There's no middleman. There's no one deciding whether you can send that to somebody else. You have complete sovereignty and autonomy over that digital currency. No one has control of it. No one can block you from using it. No one can block you from accepting it. And there is, it's not country orientated. No one's in control, and it's like this beautiful energy network of exchange that traverses the entire world. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yes, yes,
What a
I'm in.
dream. And maybe something like that exists somewhere in the world. Um, and it's kind of making me think, is that how we should be talking about the technology? So maybe we shouldn't be talking about the B word. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about Bitcoin.
You mean
In
the
a
two
way.
of us, or the crypto
No,
community, or who's?
in a way of like how to kind of talk about it, how to convey the message of what Bitcoin is to those who don't know, by actually not saying the word Bitcoin. Like maybe that creates um more acceptance around it, because if you said it like that and then you said it'll take energy, it takes energy to create energy, right? Like, so that takes energy, but what it accomplishes is so powerful that it can't, the amount of energy can't really be judged on that, because it's so amazing what it offers. It's so amazing what it does. And it actually is less energy intensive than the energy of our current like monetary system, in terms of how it is sent around the world and how it's orchestrated. And it would be so much safer. It would be impervious to corruption. And wouldn't that security be worth any energy that it took to create? And what if, over 50% of all of that energy was renewable? And what if it was encouraging other companies and other organizations who wanted to create this currency from developing newer technologies to create even more sustainable energy? What if? Like, wouldn't that be
Oh, I
maybe?
wish I could go with you to the conference. I want to hear you talk and support you with all the questions that you're going to get afterwards.
Yeah. Does this exist? That will be the question.
Are you going to
Um,
wear, you can't say the word, but maybe you can wear a t-shirt with Bitcoin on.
yeah, I think we've got a
We need
brand.
to go into the t-shirt business, the crypto t-shirt business.
Yeah, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this. Um, but anyway, it's been it. I think you're very right in the sense of we don't have to kind of worry about the people that aren't bothered actually either. It's like a self-sovereignty piece. It's our power, it's our attention. And it's like, do we really need to be selling Bitcoin in terms of like its amazingness? Like, is that necessary? I think what we don't want it to be done, or we don't want to be done, is for it to be shut down. Not that it can be, but the more that, the positive spin, it allows people to take their own sovereignty back and keeps Bitcoin from yeah, being kind of suppressed, and allows it to kind of grow. But actually, in terms of our role, you're right, like that we don't really need to worry about those people that don't get it, and we can just speak about it and just find those people that are genuinely intrigued.
Yeah, because we want to be true to ourselves. We don't want to do something that creates anxiety or like, heavy hearts. So, some people might be very good at it, so there's different personalities out there. But I think for us specifically, and
Mm.
I think in general, let's just support each other as a community and what we believe in. And oh, I wanted to share one of my little fears is that like in the US, it's hard to get a sense of what's happening in the government and Congress, and, what kind of regulations are going to show up. It's really hard. It could be pro, it could be con, it could be in the middle in terms of supporting people's free access to crypto. But one of my concerns is one day I wake up and my bank won't allow me to move my money into the crypto world. Is there going to be some kind of regulation like that? But again, like you have places like Coinbase, which seem to be very connected in a relatively positive way with the government in terms of they're following all the steps. So it's like you could get onto a place like that perhaps still, because like, and what made me think about that is with Binance, and now that Swift, you can't use the Swift method of moving your money from one bank to Binance. But, there's always a way. There's always a way. We have in our grocery stores, it's called like Jewel. It's sort of a big grocery store here, at least in the Midwest. And they have these big machines where you can put your money in, your dollars, your coins, and you can access Bitcoin, Litecoin, a couple, I think Doge. And I haven't done it yet. I want to try it so I can share how that works, because then I think you have to KYC, and it must go somewhere to some kind of holding entity, wallet or something. But so that's what I was thinking, if I can't move it from my bank, I can take it out of my bank and walk to the little ATM place and put it in there somehow. And keep it for the future, because even if we have some regulation here that prohibits accessing crypto in some shape or form, that part of my positive outlook is that's going to change too. Just like there was regulations trying to be passed with the internet. Eventually that just dropped to the side when people were so into it. There was just no way the government could pass these regulations. People wouldn't allow it because they had already accepted it. It sort of filtered through. And I see the same again with crypto, Bitcoin. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
It's an important share because actually it's been coming in the news recently, and a lot of people have been worried about that. And there's so many points around it really that I can think of, like in terms of putting your money in to Bitcoin, there's always going to be ways and means to do that. But if you prevent it from happening with your bank or even an ATM, that's going to push it towards potentially more nefarious actors, right? So at the moment you have got apps that you can bring in money from your bank, and they can just be a bit more expensive than some of the traditional kind of wallets or exchanges where you can put your money in easily and it's linked. So you can imagine that you're still going to have, it's very likely you're still going to have apps that will be enabling you to like take your money out of your bank and put them in into Bitcoin. But imagining if they were like, no, we're going to shut it all down, there's still going to be people who want to buy Bitcoin. It's like a global thing. People are going to want to use it. People want to have their sovereignty. So you're going to be making people go down these kind of more dodgy routes where it's like, oh, just buy this TV for 250,000 or whatever, and we'll put it into, we'll then put Bitcoin, the amount of Bitcoin into your account. So sort
I
of
like that idea.
money laundering thing.
You can start a business.
There you go. It'll be like
We could sell
TV
t-shirts that
Bitcoin.
actually funnel money into.
Yeah, like B word TV. Exactly. And you're going to have people like in many countries who are like, you give us the cash, we'll give you the Bitcoin, don't worry about it. Like I just don't think it's possible to shut it down. It's all across the internet, and every country is kind of involved in that. And there's many people who are going to be designing nodes and design, or like you could create a node and designing wallets that like link in with that, and then like your bank isn't going to know that account is linked to Bitcoin, blah blah blah. So the difficulty would be maybe bringing it out that would be a harder one, is like bringing it into cash.
Oh,
But I just think that this is a situation which is like it's almost impossible to kind of stamp down. Like Bitcoin is global, it's evolving, it's like spreading, right? So I think that governments are going to want to make money out of that rather than suppress it, because by suppressing it you just push it underground. It's not going to not
mhm.
exist. So if you want to, actually it's better to kind of utilize it and get money from that in terms of taxing,
Yeah.
or things like that. So they know you're going to have it, so they want to know what you have. So I don't foresee that being an issue in the future, really. I think in terms of Binance, I think that there were just some questions around Binance's integrity
Mhm.
in terms of them sending a lot of money to Binance and doing that kind of a lot of exchange and kind of encouraging it. But yeah, like if you've got a company like Coinbase, which is highly regulated, it doesn't look like that's going to be people are going to be prevented from using it. So yeah,
Well, worst case scenario, we move to El Salvador. That
yeah,
wouldn't be so bad.
no,
We could have our show on the beach in El Salvador.
yeah. And for any listeners, who are confronting similar things, it is just staying connected with those in the know and knowing that it's not our kind of our responsibility to encourage others to do anything. It will expand as it needs to, and those that find it will do it because they want to, and we just need to really focus on, yeah, like developing our own knowledge, and maintaining our own inspiration.
Yeah, and having these safe places for when people are becoming interested,
Mm.
having spaces in the crypto world, in the Bitcoin world that are very inviting and not scary and not dodgy. So the more spaces we create as a community like that, the better.
Mm. Yeah.
So there's be that soft landing, or at least welcoming landing. I don't know. Uh,
Exactly. Um, well, we offer a soft landing. So if anyone watching this like wants to join a community, then you can join our community, which is the Crypto Ethic. And that's on Mighty Networks. And the website is thecryptoethic.com. So you can find us and be softly landed into the Bitcoin hub. Um,
yeah.
yeah, where we can talk about Bitcoin as much as we want and shout the word as loudly as we want. So it's very exciting.
Oh yeah, and help us, give more of a shout out by liking our videos, subscribing, hitting the bell button and all.
Hey, thank you everyone for watching, and thank you, Anja, for this gorgeous
Oh, thank you,
conversation.
Tansy. This was fun.
It was
Again.